Ready, set, go.
Welcome to the Sweet Spot, an Updog podcast. I'm Andrea Morissette.
And I am Jack Bailey, and we are your hosts today.
And today we actually have a very special guest. I'm very excited. We have Heather Sumlin as our guest today, and she is a mental management expert. So give it up for Heather Sumlin. Woo-woo!
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
We are so excited to have you. Our community had a lot of questions for you. And so we like to start out our podcast first before we jump into it with just a little bit of information about you. So if you can let us know about you, if you have any dogs, where you live, what sports you play, dog sports you play, if any, kind of what your passions are.
Ooh, okay, so that's a lot of questions.
I know, right?
I live in Dallas, Texas, or near Dallas. I have 3 dogs. I do not play any sports with them. I have 3 pets. I think is one way to look at it. All of my dogs are my daughter's fault. Special, which her name is Special. She was a rescue that my daughter wanted so desperately about 8 years ago. So she is the cornerstone of our home, right? So anything happens to her, I don't know what we're going to do. Yeah. And then 2 years ago, my daughter brought home a puppy because she was afraid that somebody was going to just drop these puppies off on the side of the road. That's what she had heard. So she's like, we have to rescue all of them. So her and her friends go and get a gaggle of puppies, and I wind up with one. Yeah, I was not home at the time. I was at the Miss America competition watching clients. My daughter brings this puppy home, and my husband fell in love with her before I got home. So we had puppies.
You had no choice.
Yeah. And then 6 months later, her and her boyfriend decide, we're not done bringing home puppies. And they brought home another one. Only this one was massive. He's got to be part Rottweiler. The mom is a lab. And so he's 85 pounds now.
Wow.
But he is the type of dog that my husband loves, big dogs. And my husband had 3 St. Bernards when I met him. So he's been wanting a big dog again. And so we talked ourselves into keeping that one as well. So 3 dogs, all my daughter's fault, but we each own one, right? Piper, which is the middle one, loves me. Bo Bear, which is the bigger one, loves my husband. And Special is my daughter's like therapy dog. So it all works out.
That's perfect.
I don't compete in dog sports. I probably should, but I don't. What I do, my passion is really helping people reach their potential under pressure, or at least try to get as close as possible. And I do that through my father's system, mental management. My dad was an Olympic champion. And before he won the Olympics, he thought he had learned everything he needed to know to win the Olympic Games in 1972. He made the team. He was arguably one of the world's best because in training, he and his teammate were competing with each other. They were training together. The United States dominated rifle shooting at the time, which is my dad's sport. And my father was capable of beating his teammate, and no one on the planet could beat his teammate but my dad. So my dad's like, okay, cool. I can go to the Olympics. I can win my first time out. I don't have to ask for 4 more years from my wife to go and train 4 more years for this. I can do it right away. But he wasn't prepared for the mental challenges that an event like that presents. So he was focused on all the wrong things during competition and came home after kind of a mental meltdown and felt defeated, frustrated, and irritated. So even though he medaled, he won a silver, but because he didn't reach what he felt like was his capability under that type of pressure, he came home feeling really, really frustrated. So he interviewed Olympic champions to find out what are they doing about the mental game that I'm obviously not, so that I can get the color medal I want when I go back. And my mom granted him the permission to shoot 4 more years. And he took the system that he created based on the feedback he got from all those champions that he interviewed and realized that elite performers think differently than an average person. And he needed to change the way he thought in order to excel in sport. So he took this mental management system that he created. He tried it for the first time in 1974 at the World Championships. He made every team. He medaled in every event. He brought home 15 medals from 1 World Championships, 8 of them gold. So he became the #1 ranked shooter in the world at that point in time. 2 years later, he won the Olympics. 2 years later, he repeated as world champion. So he was arguably one of the best in the world. He actually ranks, I think he's 4th now, but he was 3rd overall medal count in his sport up until maybe a couple years ago. So he is very successful in his sport. But what was interesting is everyone noticed, okay, you're doing something different because you weren't winning anything before, and now you're winning everything. So what on earth are you doing? And they knew he was doing something with the mental game, but nobody knew. And back then, like, sports psychology was in its infancy. No one was really talking about the mental game or thinking that you could even do anything about it or train it. And so my dad started teaching people what he knew, and it became a business. And then he's been teaching for, what is that, 5 decades? It's an insane amount of time that he's been
Yeah.
teaching.
That was a great opening summary. Woo! Blew that one out of the water. I love it.
Yeah,
Thanks.
and that one kind of took away my first question already. That's great, Heather. You covered it.
Right away. That was great.
So-
That's where mental management came from.
So that was what I was going to ask. And of course, I think that is something that everybody many people, I'll say, not everybody, but many people in the disc dog community struggle with. You can do one thing out on the practice field in your backyard, and you can do something maybe totally different, or your abilities seem different when you get out there and the nerves hit and the mental game starts and things like that. So this is a topic, just like Dre said, that many folks in our community reached out with great questions, and it's something that I don't know, you know better than I, but I think even today, maybe it's something that's not talked about or not shared as much, and it's kind of like you either have it or you don't have it. And I can say, Dre knows this about me. Dre, what's my number one struggle?
He needs a lot of peppermint and peace and calm when he eats, doused with it and peppermint gum. And yeah, he absolutely really struggles with performance anxiety, and he has all sorts of tips and tricks and things that he does in order to and he's been playing. How long have you been playing? 25 years, Jack?
Yeah, over 20. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's fascinating because he could go out and deliver so easily in practice, but when he gets to a performance area, he really does melt down.
So here's what could be happening with you. Let's just work on Jack. Okay, so what could be happening is when we think about performance, and this is on a mental management level. So performance is a function of 3 mental processes. So you have your conscious mind, which is your thoughts, and you have your subconscious, which is your skills, which that's what you're training in practice all the time, to have those skills that are honed so well that you don't have to think about them to do them anymore. That's your subconscious skill. But then you have your self-image, and your self-image is actually your belief in your ability. It's where your habits and attitudes are in your self-image. So you're going to perform up to your self-image, not your skill level. So what happens is people will train and train and train and train and train so that they have the skill, and in practice they can just do amazing things, and they get into competition, and one of 2 things is happening. Either they're completely unfocused because they're focusing on how they feel or what's going on around them, so they're out of balance. We look at them like circles, and we want our circles to be balanced. When our conscious mind focus on something we've decided will help us, right? And we want to control that. We want to build skill through deliberate practice, but we also want to believe in our ability, and we want to have the self-image of a winner and the self-image of someone who can control themselves in these environments. So you're either unfocused because you're worried about external things or internal feelings, or your self-image has said, it's normally not like us to perform well in this type of an environment, so we're just not going to. And so, or you might not even believe that you're as skilled as you actually are if you beat yourself up or are internally negative or are self-critical or a perfectionist or something like that, which there tends to be. I don't do a lot in your sport, not yet, maybe I will now, but I do a lot in dog agility and nose work and some of the other dog sports. And I feel like there's a lot of perfectionists or overachievers who tend to want to do dog sports, and then they're taking that same mentality and bringing it into the games that they're playing, and it doesn't actually work well. So I'm not sure which it is for you, but you're out of balance when you go to compete.
Yeah, I can say that I'm almost 100% confident that it is the self-image component. I think that the only thing that gets me through is the other component that you talked about, the muscle memory, the practice of just going through it. That if I do enough of that, that can get me through some of the other components, that like my self-image piece that I know is always, I walk out there with doubt. I walk out there with doubt. I walk out there with, what if this happens, kind of thing, instead of I'm going to go out and just kill it, or like I'm just like, that's definitely in my thought process when I step out there. So I know that that's probably the component that I need support with.
Probably so. We call that person the frustrated expert. There's somebody who is like really, really good in practice, and then they get in a competition and they fall apart. We're like, oh my gosh, but you're really skilled. Yeah, but I don't know, I can't do it today. Well, it's probably because of the way you talk to you. So your self-image grows and shrinks based on imprints. So what we think about, talk about, write about, what other people tell us, what actually happens, are all imprints on our self-image. We have a self-image about everything that we do. I have a self-image about driving. My daughter and my husband would tell you I'm a very slow driver. I'm never in a hurry. I'll let people jump in front of me. I'm in the right-hand lane. And yet my husband and my daughter both have the opposite self-image. They want to be in that left-hand lane, wiggling in and out of traffic, give themselves just enough time to get where it is that they want to go. If I'm in the car with them and they're driving, I am uncomfortable because they're performing outside of my comfort zone. So we're going to perform best within our comfort zone. Well, your comfort zone is your upper and lower level limits of what's like you. That is essentially your self-image. So we're going to want to improve your self-image so it's in line with your skills. So when you go to compete, it feels effortless. It feels fun. It feels easy, and you'll want to do it more.
All right. Well, Dre, I don't think this podcast is all about me. So sorry I jumped over there a little bit.
I brought her here just for you, Jack. Actually,
this is excellent, though. I mean, it's
do every day, so I automatically go to let's solve the problem.
well, I'm curious. So that whole conversation, right? What's happening in Jack's body? Like, what's happening when he goes out on the field? So I get the three elements of things. And I also know, as an athlete throughout my whole life, if I'm, when I played soccer when I was a kid and I was making a charge to strike the goal, I would be physically incapable of running. I would trip over my own feet and fall before I could strike the ball. And that was an issue that hurt my confidence then as a player, that I didn't want to continue to make that very embarrassing mistake, right? But that was a physical thing that happened in my body. And it wasn't like my brain was saying legs get shaky.
No, but it could
right?
It could be a self-image thing because we're going to be pulled to do what's like us. And so if it's like you not to strike the ball because you're in that environment that you need to, so either you're putting too much pressure on you to have to do it, right, and then you're going to be pulled to do what's like you instead of what you're capable of. So it could be that. I think what you're talking about is, how do we feel on the inside when we're
what's actually happening chemically inside of our bodies when this anxiety happens?
I'm not a doctor or a nurse or someone who's studied the anatomy to know exactly what is happening internally, but here's what I want you to believe to be true. I think that what's happening is that we're getting a release of adrenaline, right? So whenever we're going to go do something that matters to us, that's important to us, or that we need to be able to reach our potential, our body releases adrenaline. So, but is adrenaline good or bad? It's actually good, because your senses are all heightened. It's almost like superpowers that you're receiving in order to go and excel in whatever it is you're about to do. The problem is, as humans, we're like, oh my gosh, this is so different than how I feel in practice. Must be bad. Okay, but it's not bad. It's just a feeling. Like, okay, your tummy turns, your palms sweat, your heart races, whatever that may be. What if that is your body's natural reaction to adrenaline, and adrenaline's actually good? So therefore, should those feelings be good or bad? Well, now all of a sudden I'm like, wait, I like this feeling, because this means I'm going to be given some added energy, added help to be able to do what it is that I've trained to do. I'll put it in a different way, because I work with a lot of teenagers, and this is what I tell them. Is there some cute person that you would like to go out on a date with? And they're like, yeah, okay. If you felt those little nerves, would you cancel the date? Oh no, I'm just so excited. Yes.
Yeah.
So how it's the same feeling, different circumstance, but all of a sudden we don't like this feeling in this scenario, but in this other scenario, we're super excited. So excitement and nerves are both sides of the same coin.
Yep.
That's a great way to look at it.
Very
That makes
similar
me feel better
frequency.
already. I'm like, hey, I could use that.
Yeah. It's invite the feelings in, don't fight them away.
Perfect.
Imagine, I worked with a gymnast once, a little like 11-year-old gymnast, right? Maybe she was 9. She was really small. And she was telling me, oh, I'm so afraid to do my back handspring on the balance beam. And I'm thinking, yeah, well, me too. I would not. And she's like, I just feel all these feelings. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that means your superpowers have arrived. So I told him, like, superpowers, that's what you're feeling. And so, and we came up with something she could think about before she went and did her routine. And she came the next week with her gold medal from winning the beam competition because her superpowers arrived. So I think we just have to reframe, reshape how we view what's going on instead of just assuming that, oh my gosh, the wheels are falling off my wagon because I feel different than I did in practice. That's just not the case.
That's super valuable.
And this may relate to exactly what you were just saying, Heather. But so we had Andre put this out there on our Facebook group and let folks know that we were going to be doing a podcast on this topic. And so they submitted some questions. And one of the questions was about, sometimes you walk out onto the field and it's about to be your turn. And in the sport of disc, the round or whatever starts with, they give a thumbs up to the timer and it says ready, set, go. And then they start playing with their dog. But sometimes things happen, like it's your turn, you're up next, and all of a sudden the judges feel like it's time for a restroom break, or something goes wrong with the time.
Music plays, or
Right.
the timer gets broken.
So it's almost like, in football with the whole icing the kicker thing, like the kicker walks out there to kick and then they're like, oh, timeout. And so how does that play into this? What could a player do, the human handler member of the team? Like, what could they do to kind of settle themselves when that happens?
Okay, so we teach to have a mental program, something that you're going to run in your mind before the action phase begins. You have anticipation, what you think about beforehand, the action phase, and then the reinforcement phase, what you think about afterwards. You would just reset. So basically what you would do is you would say, oh, I'm grateful I get to do this again, instead of, oh my gosh, I was ready and now I'm not ready. At the end of the day, why can't you get ready again? And I think it's deciding that we don't know what's going to happen next. So let's not anticipate what's going to happen next. Let's get excited for what is. So there's a delay. Well, great. I have another chance to rehearse how I want to feel while I'm playing with my dog. That imprints on the self-image. I'm more likely to duplicate what I've just decided is going to happen. Therefore, they're giving me more time to mentally prepare. Score. I'm so happy about that. Instead of, oh no.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
How dare they? I was ready, right? So it's like reframing. How do we interpret our environment? And I think, unfortunately, we live in a very negatively charged world where people are used to complaining, getting frustrated, not liking things. And then, so if you're that type of person, no shade. I mean, we all have it, right? We all complain about things. We vent to our friends and all this stuff. But you need to limit how often you do it, when you do it, and why you do it. Because why should we get upset about something that just is going to be what it's going to be? And if you're going to be a true seasoned elite performer in anything, you're going to have to control your attitude in the midst of distractions, chaos, and frustration. You're going to have to. So what's great about your sport, and I think dog sports in general, provide opportunities for us to learn what is missing within ourselves to be better humans. So it's almost like a journey of self-discovery. Here we think we're going to do this for our dog. Next thing you know, it's like, oh my gosh, I got to work on me.
Yeah.
Kind of cool. It's kind of humbling, but it's kind of cool.
Well, I think people would feel more comfortable with it being something that they'd work on for them, versus it being somewhere else.
Yeah, because you can
with their dog, or with the other people, or with the organization that can't get their music right, or the environment at that event, or whatever. That all kind of takes your power away. But if all the focus is on what your preparation is. And if
Mhm.
something else happens and you're able to reframe it inside of go back to step one and just rerun the pattern. Like if your pattern gets interrupted in the middle of your set, go back to the beginning of the set and restart the pattern and see that as an opportunity versus seeing it as, ultimate destruction of your one chance to really shine and show all this work that you've been doing. Of course, this would be the one time that the music doesn't work, or that the judges need a break, or that the rain just started, or that the wind just picked up, or whatever any of those things are. It's really interesting to reframe it and just go back through the pattern again.
Here's a
Yeah, we
really
didn't
cool.
even bring up the wind. That one definitely gets in my head.
For me too. That's one of the big ones for me when I go out onto a competition field. I think about how windy it is, and that mental talk of course, it's a world championship. Of course it would be gusting when I'm walking out on the field, and should I do my hard first throw, or should I simplify it in order to be safe and make sure that my confidence is good at the start, and then that starts, right? So I'm already replanning and diverting my plan because of some environmental factor that I knew would be present. I knew it could be present. It's pretty much windy at every event. I mean, every world championship. I mean, very rarely do we have one that isn't impacted by some kind of
Do you train in the wind?
yeah,
So do you know how to adjust?
sure, I do. Yeah.
I mean,
But
um,
I can make mistakes in my practice and there isn't a big cost to that.
okay,
But if
well,
I miss my first, like, for
mhm,
example, last year at World Championship, I had a new dog had just moved up. She was 2.5, so she had just moved up into competing age, and she missed her first three moves.
mhm.
And that messes with your head.
Certainly could.
Yeah. So right on the start is the beginning, right? So what do you do in that moment? Do you fumble through the rest of it, or do you just pretend that didn't happen and keep on executing your plan? But I think that. Um, That's interesting. In the middle of it, maybe, what would you do? If you're in the middle of something and it goes horribly wrong,
Okay, well, let's talk about that for a second. So we have anticipation, action, reinforcement phases of
we
the
didn't have
task.
this question either. This is bonus.
Yeah, well, that's fine.
Now first we worked on me, now we're working on you, Dre.
Working on me, right?
Yeah, so we have the anticipation phase. That's where you're deciding what you're going to do and you're mentally preparing for what you're
Yeah.
about to do, right? The action phase is where you're executing what you've planned. All right, so if you're adjusting your plan, you're changing your strategy based on the wind, which is perfectly fair.
Mhm.
And you still need to execute the strategy that you've decided, that you've committed to before you began your routine. All right, so that means you've got to commit to the entire routine.
Mhm.
The time to evaluate your performance is when you're no longer performing, not
Yeah.
in the middle of the
Not in the middle of the performance.
So
Terrible time.
it was funny. I worked mainly in it. So I got started in dog sports because I was working for my father, and somebody had called the office and was talking about dog sports. And I'm like, wait, what? I have a dog. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, what do you do? And next thing you know, we're in dog sports out of nowhere. Never had even heard of obedience, agility, or any of these things. And then I started working with handlers because I was a female and I was affordable, and there was someone who was also a female handler and wanted to work with a female, and then also just wanted to not pay my dad's rates, if we're being fair. And she's like, I can teach you everything you need to know about agility. You teach me about the mental game. And that's what started it about, we think, 15 years ago. And I remember, you always say you win or you learn, right? You either win, you succeed, you meet your expectations, or you learn something that helps you win in the future. And she would always call me after a trial and she would say what she learned, right? We talk about what she learned. And she called me, she goes, I'm tired of learning. I'm ready to win. I'm tired of learning. I said, okay, great. And she says, but today I learned not to celebrate before the run is over
Hmm.
because they had one more obstacle. She was
Mhm.
fast and clean, would have won the event, and got excited about the fact that they're fast and clean, and then celebrated before that last obstacle. The dog took it off course, all the things. So the idea is when you are in the action phase, your job is to execute what you have decided to do, not analyze what you've just done. So it's a mental error for you to be analyzing your performance during. And do you have judges? Are there other people analyzing? Well, let them do their job, right? Like, don't do their job for them. Like, leave the judging to the judges.
Yeah.
Your job is to execute what you've trained, what you've planned. You can learn from it afterwards. And allow yourself to be human. Humans make mistakes. Humans are not robots. Humans are not perfect. There's not a perfect person that walks the planet currently. And so therefore, don't demand something of you that is not even possible for you to obtain. It's actually unfair. So if you're expecting perfection in a world that doesn't even allow it to be possible, you're going to be disappointed every single day.
Right. To some degree, at least. Yeah.
And
I really-
mistakes are
Go
important.
ahead, Heather. Go ahead.
Mistakes are important. Adversity is an effective teacher. We learn from the things that go wrong. We don't learn from the things that go right. Now, I'm
Like
not
your
saying stuff off
person.
purpose.
Yeah, she
Huh?
learned like your agility person learned a very clear message about finishing all the way through the end of the obstacle. She'll never have to learn that lesson again.
Never
But
again.
adversity is what taught her that lesson, right? And you could tell her that a million times, but until you actually experience it and lose something that really means a lot to you because you didn't do that thing,
Right.
that's a quick lesson.
Well, and what really has been hitting home as you've been talking for me, Heather, is like the action phase, and your job during that action phase is to execute. I keep hearing that. That's very clear to me because many times I am in the evaluation, component when I should be in
While
the
we're doing it.
execution component. And like, like Dre said, if my dog misses something, then I'm like, uh-oh, now that's 2 misses already. And like that's going on in my head instead of let me execute this next trick the way I know I can and like putting my focus and energies on that. But that's a really powerful thing for me to think about and work on. I am in this mode. I am in execute mode like that. Thank you for that. I think that's going to be helpful for me.
Yeah.
I think there's 2 main things. When you think about the action phase, there's 2 main things. You need to be present, because if you're present, you're not analyzing what you've done. You're focusing on the here and the now. And you need to be positive.
Yeah.
So if you can remember that, you're like, okay, that's my goal. I'm going to just be present and positive during the routine. I'm more likely to execute what I've trained. That's going to be better than, oh my gosh, I need to make up for what I've missed already.
Right.
And that's going to, it reminds me of, okay, this is interesting. I work in a lot of different sports, and I work with competitive twirlers. And I feel like it's similar because of the fact that they have to throw stuff in the air, catch it. Different, they're catching it themselves, their dog's not catching it. But it's kind of a similar idea. And a lot of times they'll count their drops.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then you're just going to drop more because you've just imprinted it's like me to drop stuff, right?
Yeah.
So y'all might be the same way. If there's a miss and you're counting your misses, you're just more likely to have more misses.
And I'm making changes to my routine. If those misses happen, I'll modify my plan as I'm going to make it easier or take more risk based on how many drops I've had. And I guess that can be part of the plan, but if it's reactionary,
it depends if it's strategic. Okay,
Yeah.
so like let's say you're in a world championship, and I'm not going to pretend to understand exactly how everything is scored and everything. I just work in sports that are somewhat probably similar, figure skating, things like that, where
figure
there's
skating, scoring type of thing. is
points
how I
connected,
yeah.
right, to the, okay. So if in order for me to win and I'm at this elite level, I have to make up for what I've lost. Like if you just intellectually, this, it's not, if you complete the routine as you've planned, you can't catch up to whomever is in the lead.
Difficulty wouldn't be high enough, right?
Well, right. And so then if you have to do something on the fly and it is like you to do that, okay, great. Now, if you're someone who I have only trained what I'm going to do right now, I have never practiced throwing something extra into a routine, you are not at the level in which you can confidently do that. And then you're probably going to fail at that attempt and you're going to walk away going, well, I just shot myself in the foot.
Right.
So it depends on who you are. If you're a seasoned competitor and you have all these skills and your dog can do it and you can do it and it's going to work, like, do it. But that's only when you have to and need to. That's going to be the exception to the rule, I would think.
Yeah. This is super interesting. My brain is on fire. This is great.
All right. Dre, you want to hit the next question from one of our...
One of the big questions that we get is the yips.
Mm-hmm.
So the yips, performance anxiety, when you get to the scenario, you're physically unable to execute the thing that you can normally execute. You can go to practice, throw it right down the middle of the field. You go to a competition setting, you get to the line, and you throw it straight out of bounds to the right.
I think
And that happens event after event after event. So we would call that the yips. I don't know if it's called the yips in other sports as well. But
golf is. So yeah, I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about having the self-image that's like me to be able to execute in a competitive environment. So you have to be able to create that self-image. Now, if you have a lot of imprints of I cannot execute in this type of environment, and every time you go, you're having this happen, then your self-image is very much, hey, we really suck at this. Okay. So what you have to be able to do is you have to be able to add new imprints on top of those. That's the opposite of what's currently true so that you can create the self-image. Okay, so mental practice also is helpful. We talk about mental rehearsal, rehearsing what you want to have happen before the actual action. So mental rehearsal happens when you're about to do what it is you're planning to do. Okay, so it'd be in the preload, if you will, like before you go and compete in the anticipation phase, you would run a mental rehearsal. But mental practice is when you're practicing mentally when you're not physically doing it at all. So let's say that you transport yourself mentally to this big event, imagine it, create the scenario in your mind, and you run your routine mentally and you're successful. Your self-image doesn't know the difference between what we vividly imagine and what actually happens. So your self-image says, hey, oh my gosh, we just had a successful performance in a stressful environment, even though you weren't actually physically there. So that's one thing that you can do is add on some mental practice to your training plan. So instead of just doing the physical practice in a controlled, safe environment, you also want to mentally practice as if you're at the event that you're heading for that you care about. I would also say put a lot of stress and pressure on you when you train. Can you bring people to practice that stress you out? I don't know if it's a significant other, your mother-in-law or whatever, but who stresses you out that you can have to perform in front of them, or give yourself some goals. If I execute this clean and wonderful, then I get to go do XYZ thing that I really want to do. Like, give yourself something to shoot for to add some pressure. If you're working with a coach and they can add distractions and some sort of pressure-filled environment to where it feels more real, or they can put something on the line where it's like, hey, if you do this clean and great, you exceed expectation, then you get a free private lesson. Oh my gosh, I might actually work really hard for that. So you have to try to find ways to prove to yourself, yes, I can do this, even though I have pressure. So it's hard to simulate a competitive environment, but I think you should try.
yeah, I think we tell people to go to a park and practice, start in your backyard where there's no pressure, and then move to a higher distraction environment. And a lot of times we're giving that coaching because of their dogs.
Mhm.
We want their dogs to be comfortable in different environments. So we'll have them go to a park where there's people and dogs and distractions and noises and kids and swings and vendors and food on the ground and whatever, people watching them. And I would recommend that as something to help a dog that maybe is fearful or reactive or not very comfortable, to be able to do that. I never even thought of the human value, and it's the same exact value.
Because the human is also stressed and reactive.
Really.
And, so maybe when you're giving that direction to go to the park, say, okay, I want you to imagine that your job is now to impress all of these people with your wonderful skills.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden we have pressure because one of those old teenagers is filming it and sticking it on TikTok anyway. So you might as well.
It's going to be on social media anyway. It's a different world.
So I feel like there's an element of you're going to perform. You're letting your dog experience the environment. But if the goal is the dog needs to experience the environment, then their focus is on the dog. Whereas if you say, okay, you are now performing in this environment, there's a little bit of potentially a different level of anxiety that comes from that than I'm doing this for my dog. But hey, if the doing it for your dog works in the park, then maybe that becomes part of our mental strategy where, hey, I'm doing this for my dog. I don't really care how well I do. I care how well the dog does or how much fun the dog has. And it's not on me anymore. That might work too.
Heather, something related. I know a lot of times I'll have younger players like locally that I work with they don't want to come to the competition yet. They feel like, well, I'm not ready. And they keep kind of saying that, even though like I know their skills are ready. They're ready to do this, right? And one of the most challenging games in our sport's called freestyle. And that's the one that a lot of times they're a little bit hesitant to go out and do it live in front of people. Should they, like, I've always encouraged them, just go do it, because like and the reason I'm asking this question now is because I feel like it related to like the simulation of a big event. Like, and so if you go out to the local event and you try it, you can just consider it practice. You know, you don't have to consider that you're not going to, go for the gold or anything, but hey, this is an opportunity to practice under a competition like event and get those stressors and those feelings that come up, the adrenaline like you spoke about. Like, so would it be good for teams that maybe don't feel like they're ready to still go out and just do it, just try it, just get out there?
As long as the dog can handle the environment and is ready for that, the handler should go.
Yeah.
I think because my dad recorded an audio program called What Every Dog Agility Handler Should Know First About the Mental Game, and it's on our Patreon channel. I have a mental management for dog handlers Patreon channel. And one of the things that he says in there is he's like, well, you want to screw up a lot in the beginning, right? So you want to go ahead and make all the mistakes early. And the sooner that you get out in a competitive environment, you can make those mistakes. And he says, but training and never competing is like getting dressed up and not going to the dance. Like, so go ahead and allow yourself to go. But I like the idea of saying this is just another level of your training. So as a coach, I think you can put it as an objective. You're going to train in a trial environment instead of you're going to compete in a trial or compete in a competition, right? So we're going to train in this environment to learn, are you able to execute what you believe you can do? Are you able to execute the skills that I know you have in an environment that's more stressful? We need that information. Make it about data. We need the information to know how we need to continue to train. If you never get into that trial environment, you don't know what you need to work on because you don't know what's actually subconscious yet.
Right.
That's interesting. I think that like we think that mistakes are bad.
Well, that's really sad because you're going to make it every dang day.
Well, I mean, and obviously that's true. Like, if we think about it logically, we know that's not true. But like, what just occurred to me there is like, oh yeah, we totally think mistakes are bad. Like when I go to a qualifier and like leave without any results, I'm going to feel not good enough,
Okay, but
embarrassed or disappointed, right? I might not be leaving with like, yes, I have 10 new things that I have to completely figure out how to master before next month's competition. 10 things that I wrote all down that were like mistakes that I made, mistakes my dogs made, things I didn't prepare for, more training that I needed, things that fell apart under pressure, preparation I didn't have, gear that I didn't bring, any of that stuff, right? I don't think that we are innately programmed to think about those as opportunities, that we think about those as shameful,
okay,
right?
well,
We're worried about how we look.
and it makes sense, right? Because we're humans, and humans feel like other people are evaluating everything that they do, when in reality, other people
literally
really
have judges.
We are
Yeah.
very selfish creatures, if you think about it. How often are we thinking about other people? We're really thinking about ourselves most of the time because we're worried about what other people are going to think about us, but they're worried about what other people are going to think about them.
Yep.
Nobody's thinking about you but you. But
Nope.
anyway, that's a whole other thing. But what I think is important is to remember that, let's say you're even an elite handler and you make a mistake. Do you realize how comforting that is to everyone who's a newbie?
Right.
And so you have just basically shown, and if you show your sportsmanship and if you show the way that you should respond when those things happen, you have just educated an environment of people who was too scared to get into the ring to do the thing. And yet you made a mistake and they're like, wow, even she or he can make that type of mistake as well. I don't feel so bad about the mistakes that I make. So even if you're an elite performer, always look at, what am I doing to model the best for those who want to grow the sport, right? So how am I modeling the character necessary to do the sport well? So you don't invite the mistakes. We don't try to make mistakes on purpose, but when they happen, the way that we respond to them creates an environment where people are more willing to participate because nobody's perfect. All right, so then we talk about the newbie, right? That doesn't want to do it because they're afraid they're going to make mistakes. I think you need to encourage them. Hey, I want you to make the mistakes because mistakes are not actually negative things. It's an opportunity to learn where your holes are in your training. You need to know that in order to advance. I mean, if we never did anything we were afraid of, we wouldn't leave our couch.
Yeah.
Like, it's super dangerous just to drive on the stinking highway, but we do it
Especially in Texas.
especially when it's snow. Not in Texas. So what I would say is that if you are limiting yourself and the experiences that you're able to have and the people you're able to engage with because you're afraid of what someone's going to think about you if you're not perfect, you're never going to do anything about you.
Yeah.
So you have to have like this whole glass half full mentality. I was laughing earlier because I found this cup. I don't know. My son gave me this. It's a glass half full cup.
Oh, that is so funny.
Only fills the top half of the glass. So hysterical. But you want to have that kind of a mentality that no matter what, I'm either going to win or I'm going to learn.
I'm either going to win or I'm going to learn. I think that's a great tagline we could take from this episode. I'm either going to win or I'm going to learn. There's no losing there.
No, failure is not an option because it's not even on the table.
Yeah.
Dre, did you want to jump down? Because we kind of covered some of the ones
I think we covered
there.
it. I wanted to get to the quick tips.
Yeah. You want me to ask that?
Yeah.
All right. So, Heather, we always want quick tips, right? Those are our walk away from this podcast with some ideas to get me started and then continue our learning. And I think Dre just hit one with that tagline. What was the tagline again, Dre, for what we...
We're going to review this.
Now I put you on the hot seat.
You either win or you learn.
There you go. There you go. And, as an elementary school teacher for over 30 years, that's what I always told my kids. I was a math teacher, Heather, for a long time. So, like, if you make mistakes, that's how we learn. If no one was making mistakes, why do we even do this lesson, right? We could have just all skipped today. So that's a great one. So what are, if our listeners, they just like, I want to get started on this more, positive mental management. What are a couple tips that you would give them to get started? What, like maybe 2 or 3 tips?
Well, I think that the win or you learn is super critical because you're changing the way in which you approach competition. I think you have to recognize that performance is a function of 3 mental processes. You have to realize that your thoughts need to be controlled by you, not by your environment. I think that's huge. You need to build your skill through deliberate practice with really good coaches, really good instruction, and you need to build that self-image. There are tools that would be valuable in order to be balanced. So there's my dad's book, With Winning in Mind. It's not applied to anything specific. He's a rifle shooter. He's not a dog handler, but his strategies are valuable for anyone. And you can get that on Amazon. You can get that from me at heathersumlin.com. There is my all-time favorite book, though, that my dad wrote is Freedom Flight. And it's for the person who wants to take away their whine. Like maybe they're that person who, I don't know if I can do it. Or the environment controls my attitude and dictates what I do. Freedom Flight is a story and it's a motivational, inspirational tool that would help you to be able to recognize that you can be in control of your thoughts no matter what's going on around you. And the audio version of that is on that Mental Management for Dog Handlers Patreon page.
I will be getting that. Yeah.
And then the actual printed copy is on Amazon or on my website. And then I would say you have to, I think you need a trial tribe too. Like this is the whole other thing, but like in order to protect your self-image in the moment, you need to be going to events with people or even be surrounding yourself with people who understand how and why to build the self-image of themselves and others. If you're around people who are helping you, they can help you unpack and refocus from I made a mistake to, oh no, you learned a really great training opportunity, write it in your journal. So I guess that goes to the third product that I think would be valuable is you need to keep a performance analysis journal. I think if you want to compete, you want to be competitive. If you're doing it for fun, don't worry about it. But if you're wanting to compete and be competitive and advance in your sport or advance as a human, keeping track of what you're doing, your training, your competitions, what you're learning, and more importantly, what you're doing well is vital. So we also sell a performance analysis journal that you can grab on my site. And so it's things like that, tools like that would be helpful, or you can work with me individually or whatever you want to do. But it's everybody's starting at a different starting point, but they all need the same system.
All right, that was great.
Yeah,
Good,
it was.
good things to think about, and some excellent resources to check out. I've always done a little bit of journaling, but so I want to check that out to see what that looks like, and if that aligns kind of with what I've been doing, what I can pick up and add to what I do. So I don't know if that's I'm very analytical about things, and so that's the side of me that makes me jot things down and reflect on them later and so forth. And I don't know if that's something that you can. This is a question, Heather. Is it something like if I'm not a person that normally does that, like how do I kind of get that started? Would that journaling tool like help me to get started with that? Because I know some people are like all about doing that, and others are like, I can never remember to do it, or I lose my journal in the backseat of the car.
I think you have to decide whether or not you find journaling. If you're going to decide that journaling is going to be valuable for you, it will be valuable for you because what we write down imprints stronger than what we say out loud or what we think in our head. So the act of writing is actually really beneficial for building self-image. And the majority of handlers probably need to grow self-image, because that's the thing they've probably been avoiding or didn't know that they needed to do in the first place. So journaling can be transformational for someone. However, the habit of journaling is something you have to hone and build and decide that you want to do. I'm currently doing a mental mastery series for dog handlers. It's a 4-part webinar series. I did the first one this past Monday. It's the next 4 Mondays in a row. And I'm partnering with Barbara Courier, who is an agility handler, and then Tia Anders, who's a nosework handler. All 3 of us are mental management certified coaches. But we go through the what to do, why to do it, how to do it throughout 4 weeks. And if that's something that people want to jump in on, I just put the name, I put up dog. Did I do a dash? I can't remember. How did I give it to you?
I don't.
There's a coupon code. I think it's just up dog.
Oh,
I think it's just
cool.
I think it's just up dog, and that saves you 20%. That'll save you 20% off of that mental mastery series and off of any of the books that are on the website. And it's just heathersumlin.com. You click webinars and you'll find it. And then the products are under the shop. So if that's something that would be helpful, we won't necessarily be talking specifically your sport, but we'll be talking dog sports. And I think most of it is pretty applicable. You can also ask questions in between each webinar to be able to have it kind of more geared towards your questions. And I welcome that. So that's another.
People can jump into that now, even though it already started, people can jump in. And the code is up-dog-20.
Oh, that's what it was. Oh, good.
DOG-20.
Yeah. And you can put that in the description, I'm sure. But the idea is to really give people all of the tools and all of the information to be able to transform their mental game from where they are now to where they want to be. And it's a lot of fun. Like, I think working on the mental game should be fun. You should want to perform. You're going to perform at your best if you're having a good time. Right. You're not going to perform at your best if you're stressed out, frustrated, irritated, and annoyed and all the things, right? And you won't want to be around anybody and no one's going to like you. So we really want to become someone that everyone wants to be around and have a good time. And our dog will love us more, like all of the things. Well, I mean, they probably love you no matter what you're like, but that's the goal. So if you know you need to work on this, I welcome you to join us. But the reason I mentioned it is we are going to be tackling the performance analysis, how to keep it, exactly why, and where it fits within the system as well. So super fun stuff.
So you can drop us a link for that, and we'll include that in the podcast episode, because this is going to be going on Tuesday, right, Jack? I think this episode.
It wasn't going to, but now that we're talking, I will bump the one for this Tuesday and put this one on Tuesday. because that one's not time sensitive. So that way there, hopefully folks that are interested can jump on, use that code, and get involved in that coursework, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, the only ones that they'll miss live is the one that I just did, which was Foundations of Mental Management, and then the system, but they can catch up on those. And they don't have to, the only thing that you need to take in the right order is Foundation should be first, just so that you understand the rest of it. But they can jump in on the next Monday's class for Pressure, which is probably what a lot of people want to hear about anyway, and then catch the system after that. It doesn't have to be in the exact order. You're not going to be lost. So lots of fun.
Okay. Great.
Is there anything else that we can help you like promote? Anything else that you're up to that we could share with our community you feel would be a benefit to them?
I mean, I have a podcast. It's kind of more success driven for women. I work in two different, I was telling you before, I work in two different areas. I work in dog sports, which is one of my primary markets. And I work in pageantry, which is another primary market, which everyone's like, how on earth and what on earth and how? But so I interview a lot of people that I've worked with in the past that have gone on to do amazing things on my podcast called She Wins. It's She Wins Solutions and Stories for Women. So, that's something that some people might find valuable. I have a couple of dog handlers that I've interviewed, but there's a lot of pageant people that I've interviewed. And if that's not interesting to you at all, then don't jump in on it. But if it is, then jump over there. So that's the other thing that I've got going on. I like to help people with whatever their endeavors are. Like, what do you want to do? The other thing I would say is the mental game is not specific to sport. You can use it for anything that you do in your life. If you have a job interview, it applies. If you want to improve your relationship with your spouse, it applies. So it's not so specific to sport that you can only use it in sport. So if you're someone who's like, I'm great in my sport, I'm struggling in my work life, well, it might help you there too. So
Great.
lots of fun. Yeah.
Dre, did you give Heather a heads up on the time warp challenge that we do at the end of the
I told her we play a fun game at the end.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that right now.
I did give her access to the podcast, so she had the opportunity to hear episodes and know what's happening.
I have no idea. I have no clue. I didn't make it all the way down to the end. Okay.
So we play a fun game called the Time Warp Challenge, where we ask you 10 questions over 1 minute, and you have 1 minute, 60 seconds to answer all 10 questions. And if you're able to answer all 10, you win, and you win nothing but our hugs and appreciation.
Okay. Yay. Okay. All right.
So they're just quick, fun questions. Don't think too much about them.
Okay.
All right. I have my timer
Dre's
ready.
going to time us.
Okay.
Got my timer ready. Jack, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So let's give her a ready, set, go.
All right. Heather, would you rather take a vacation to the mountains or the beach?
Ooh,
No.
What's one item you can't live without?
Okay.
How do you spell okay?
Okay.
What do you put on a burger?
Only meat, cheese, and bread.
She's ready.
Do you like roller coasters?
Yeah, sort of.
Would you rather go to the doctor or the dentist?
Ooh, depends on why. Dentist, probably.
If you could have a lifetime supply of a certain product, what would you want that product to be?
I mean, toilet paper only because of COVID.
What TV show from your youth should they make into a movie? 15 seconds.
Okay, Grey's Anatomy, but I don't know if that's youth, but yeah.
Okay. Does round or square pizza taste better?
8 seconds.
They both taste amazing, but I'll go for round every day.
What's another podcast or YouTube channel people should listen to?
She Wins.
There you
Right at
go.
time. Very nice job. Man, you put it out like hot. You were like, we were
I
like,
didn't
fact,
even hear the second one. What's one item you can't live without? You said it so
phone.
fast.
my phone.
Oh, your phone. Okay. All right.
So I should say I do interview coaching as well. So
okay.
maybe that helps me. I don't know. But
You were locked and loaded. I was like,
love
keep
that.
going.
That's fun.
Yeah, that's a fun game. Get to know you a little bit and ask you off the wall questions. Jack's really good at those questions. He gets all the credit. He gets all the credit for that.
I love that. That's
We
fun.
have actually one of the Updog Challenge games is called Time Warp, and so we kind of like went off of that game that they play with them and their dog, which is a timed 60-second game. So we have a little fun with it.
I love that. That's awesome. And it kind of ends it on a high note and a fun note.
A fun note, yeah.
Yep.
So thank you. I mean, I randomly messaged you or got connected with you earlier this week, and I am so pleased that you were able to make time for us this week. We are so grateful. This is going to be a huge contribution to our community. I expect that there will be new business coming in for you, for people that want to learn and grow in this area and be coached in this area. So thank you for sharing different resources for that. For one, I'm definitely getting that audiobook because I'm an audiobook person, so I very much look forward to that. And hopefully, maybe one of these days you'll get into a little dog sport action and show up at one of our up dog events for one of our agility games. That would be a dream come true for us.
I might come just to watch. Do you
There
have
you
it
go.
in Dallas? Just let me know when you're doing something in my area.
Yeah, we have a club. We have a club in Dallas.
Very cool. Maybe I'll have to check it out. Awesome.
Well, Heather, like Dre, I just want to say thank you. This mental part of the game is something that I've struggled with a long time. I do feel like I'm getting better at it now. After it only took 20 years, I'm getting a little bit better. But I feel like you've given me some more things to try out and think about, and I definitely want to check out some of the things that you mentioned, especially the journaling. I want to get into that and see what other tools you have for me there, because I like doing that. So thank you very much, and thank you for the code that everybody should use. Dre, what's that code again? It's up /
dog 20.
Perfect. All right.
It's 20% off. So thank you for that. And your Patreon too is a great one to check out. So I'm looking forward to checking out your Patreon as well.
Yeah, I'll send
But
you.
we'll drop all those links in the comments.
And updoggers out there, we hope you enjoyed this podcast. Check out Heather's website, and we hope that we will see you on an updog field soon. And in the meantime, Dre, what should they do?
Be kind to each other.
And be kind to your animals, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Heather.
Bye, everybody.
This podcast is all about me.